Good morning. It is probably the last somewhat decent day temperature-wise. Going to be 60, and looking in the future, it's like the 40s. We got the 911 out today, and I got the lovely Ellen in the car with me. It's going to be a good morning. It is a little cold and windy. There's no sun out. Let's take a look at Kevin's Rabbit here. Good morning.
Good morning.
You guys staying warm?
Trying to, yeah.
This is Kevin Krohn's VR6 swapped Rabbit Pickup. It's got this BBS body kit on it that's actually for just a Rabbit, but it's been modified to fit a truck. It's very neat. So I'm trying to get it out one last time before it gets cold. Starting to warm up a little bit. What do you think, Kevin? How's the cruise going so far? Whoop, toggling around. I don't know how this thing works.
Not too bad. Staying fairly warm inside the truck. The gas don't need. I think it's a pretty good day. The sun should come out, but it's probably not going to.
Alright, we tried to stop by the fire department to get Ellen's sweatshirt that's been there for a few months. It's closed. It's a volunteer fire department, so it's not always stocked. But now we're just going to do a little bit of shopping here in Louisville before lunch. I forgot to mention Louisville is where we do our Volkswagen show every year. The firehouse, they do a pancake feed every year. At the show this year, Ellen accidentally left her sweater, and we've been trying to track it down for a few months, but it's a volunteer fire department, so there's not always someone there. So maybe next time. All right, we're back from the cruise. It was a really good time. Again, a little chilly and a little windier, and was expecting a few more people, but it was kind of a last minute deal, so it worked out just fine. But we're back in the garage, and the plan is to pick up where we left off with the blower motor fiasco. One of the other little things that I got is a new emblem. I've actually removed the old one, but the one that was on the car, you could not even read anymore. I actually have a neighbor who, I think he's 80 years old, and lives in China most of the year, but comes back like 1 month out of the year. And he has a pretty big collection of Volvo parts. He had all of these grills. There's a third one under there. And my hope was to pull the badge off of this to put onto mine because it's the same size, but when I started doing it, it cracked. So I ended up just getting one off of eBay, and it's not like an original badge. It's really meant to just stick over the faded one. I have another grill upstairs even that's in a little bit better shape than this. That came from the same neighbor, but it's for a 140. I'm gonna stick that on the other grill eventually and swap grills, but that is a project for another day. Today's project, we've got the new blower motor resistor that will let me switch to that 2-wire motor. And the nice thing is I did find instructions on how to do this from IPD, who sells Volvo parts. So they actually sell a kit. I did not buy this through them, but if I had known it existed, I probably would have. They sell a kit that has the switch, that has the motor, and that has the relay that is needed to convert the old 5-wire ones. And last time I think I said something about this is it has an internal resistor. IPD describes it as, you know, the way that this is wound and something, uses technical terms. I don't know. Either way, it's got a lot of wires. The new one doesn't, but we've got the parts to do it, except for the switch, which is not going to be here, I think, until Wednesday, maybe Tuesday. It got delayed, but I can do pretty much everything else. Following these instructions, there is some modifications that we have to do to the housing, just kind of trim down some of the areas so this new motor sits right and that the fan blades won't hit anything. That's where we're going to start. It's not super late, but I mean, it is 6 p.m. and I'm just starting this. I might get like just as far as getting stuff trimmed down, getting the motor in there, maybe getting the resistor wired. We'll see. I opened this up and saw just the chaos of how things got left. Oh my gosh. So the first thing we have to do, not the best pointing implement, but we've got to grind down that side and the opposite side. You see how they're kind of flat right there? The new motor can't pass through there. Once that's ground down, then the motor should be able to slide through. I'm hoping it's not going to need a whole lot of grinding, but we'll use the, nope, that's the ratchet and wrench. We'll use this die grinder in there, zip it down, and just go little by little until it fits. All right, wasn't too bad. It's now in there. On to the next grinding. So the instructions say to grind those little nubs that are inside of those oval shapes, but they totally fit within the side of the oval shape. So I think it's good. I think I could mount it and the resistor mounts via one of the screws there. So that's nice. The other thing the instructions say is that I have to drill a hole in the bottom of the housing here to feed the wires through, but the wires are pointing up and you can see that black grommet right there is where the old wires went through. So I don't see a need to do that. I'm just gonna route them out the top like the original wires were. All right, we've got the motor bolted in, the wires, the resistor. All the wires are run out here. Just gotta reconnect the plug for them, and I think we should be fine. Gosh, I'm really hoping, I'm thinking more about how it said to put that hole in the bottom to run these wires. All the wires before ran out the top, and even in the diagram it says the resistor wires run out the top, but the motor wires run out the bottom. And the original motor, I guess, let me show you something. So in the box of parts that I also got from my neighbor, there's a blower motor, of course, but it's like a new old style, I guess. So you can see it would mount like this and the wires would go out the bottom, and they even have this whole little grommet and everything. I don't know if that's why they're telling you to drill a hole and run the wires out the bottom, because on some of them they're like that. Doesn't really make sense to me. I hope I don't regret it, but I feel like it's best to not put extra holes in if I don't have to. So I'm gonna run them out the top. I guess leave comments if you think that's gonna be super detrimental. But by the time you comment, it's gonna be all back together anyways, and I'm probably not gonna take it apart. So I just finished getting the fan bolted in and the resistor bolted in, the wires run, the plug repinned, and kind of want to show you something that I've come up with. I guess I don't know, this is not an authorized thing, but these Milwaukee M12 batteries, they're 12 volts, terminals on top labeled plus and minus. And I have quite a few times used these just to test usually pretty quick things like little solenoids or little switches. But what I ended up just making today is on off switch, and then just the negative going to the negative side, so I could put the black wire on that 2-wire motor, just clamped it onto here, and then put this into each of the pins that correspond with different speeds on the new switch, and then just switch it on and off to make sure it works. Got the fan blades put back on the sides of the motor. I've got my Milwaukee 12-volt battery plugged in here, and when I turn the switch on, the fans start going. Blowing the right direction, nothing, the blades aren't hitting anything, so we are good to go. The heater box is all back together, the caps are on, the vents are all hooked up. There's just a couple bolts to like secure them in place. The vacuum lines for all the vent stuff is hooked back up. One thing to keep in mind if you're ever doing this is the whole dash is loose. And as it has sat here, it has sagged a bit. And so there's a couple spots where I'm like, gosh, these vents just won't go back how they should. How did these ever come off? Well, it's because the dash is drooped. So everything is a little bit more compressed. So if you push up on it, you can kind of get stuff in there. I feel pretty good about where we're at. If I can get the rest of the dash stuff, if I can get that center console back in, that'll feel really good. The glove box should go pretty quick. I think the worst of it is behind us, thankfully. So we'll pick back up in the morning, just like that. All right, it's already about 7 o'clock at night, so we may not get as much done today as I was expecting. It's been a pretty busy day with other things, but we'll see. Gonna see if we can get the dash supports all back in. I think that'd be a pretty good accomplishment for today. And then assembly might go into a third day here, but that's okay, we've got time. Especially when there's this many things going back together. Don't tighten anything super tight until you have at least all of the bolts and screws in. One of the interesting things about these old Volvos is that they're actually all like standard SAE sizes instead of metric. It wasn't until like the 240s, I think sometime in mid-70s, converted to metric units. So working on this car, you're pretty much using fractions the whole time. And there's only like very rare stuff that is like later, like maybe with the fuel injection or just some of the newer, like the dash is a little bit updated, but still most of the stuff is standard sizes. So it's not quite what you would expect with most foreign cars. All right, so we got basically the under dash supports, these vertical supports are in. The glove box ends up being like somewhat integral. This bar bolts to the glove box and the glove box bolts up to the dash, and these two bolts up here, big pain to get all lined up and tightened, but we got them. The whole like heater control panel is what is sort of structural here. And since I don't have the new fan switch yet, I'm not gonna put that in. Being where we are feels pretty good, so I'm excited about that. All right, we're out here for the third day. It hasn't been, I mean, it's been several hours. I probably, I don't know, 4 hours into this, 5 hours into this with editing. So a little bit more than I was expecting, but I've been breaking it up over a few days. It's a little chillier out here today, but I do have my little heater on the ceiling going, and it's aimed right down at the Volvo. So we actually got quite a bit done last night. I did a little bit more too, even after I shut the camera off, but all the dash is pretty much back together except for the center part. I've got the center heater controls sitting right here. I've already swapped in the new fan switch as well, so it's kind of nice. It's a little bit more compact. One of the goofy things is the new switch is 4 positions instead of 3 positions. And that's just how the later style cars are. And the later style cars, they're numbered 1, 2, 3, 4. Mine obviously starts at 0. And so I clocked it so 0 is still off, 1 is still speed 1, 2 is still speed 2, 3 is still speed 3. And then there's a little bonus speed kind of off to the side here, but I guess maybe I'll forget about it and that'll keep me from putting it on high speed. I honestly imagine that this new style motor, that's not going to be a problem. That was one of the things that killed the original one. I drove this 73 Volvo 142 from Omaha to Oregon and got a little chilly, and I was running it on high quite a bit. So you can check out the full story in my previous video. I think that's going to work pretty good. The connector all fits, so let's get a little bit of this wiring probably just zip tied up a little bit better and kind of put back in place, and then we'll start reconnecting everything and go from there. I should mention, getting yourself a pair of little flush cut snips like this is so nice for zip ties. Normal snips will leave a pretty sharp edge, but these are actually totally flush on this side. So it leaves a really smooth, clean cut edge that you're not going to cut your hand on trying to shove your hand into places. In case you didn't see it when I took this all out, all of the heater controls, except for the fan, are vacuum operated. So there's actually like a dozen vacuum lines running through the dash, and every little flap has a little accordion diaphragm on it, and depending on which buttons you push up here or where you set the heat, there's all of these vacuum lines that run through this little block here, connector, and then throughout the dash. Alright, got this all back together. Let's turn the key. Keys on, radio's on, fuel pump primed, clock's going. Let's try the fan. Sweet. I'm gonna go through and check everything else. Then we'll get the last just kind of things tucked away. Well, success. We got it all back together. Everything seems to be working. The blower motor is working again. I still have the gauge cluster out because I'm going to check the wiring diagrams between a 240 and a 140. I thought I had it working, but there's an issue with the battery charge light, like the alternator charge light. And the way it was working, when I'd shut the car off, power would backfeed and keep the ECU powered, and it would keep running with the key off. So I fixed that, but now the gauge cluster isn't working right. There's still a problem where now when the car is on, like the parking brake light and stuff doesn't work, so there must be something a little different with the ground, so we're going to check that out. But otherwise, it's back together. Got the tools out of the car, but I still need to put them away in the toolboxes. So I'm going to do that real quick, but that's going to be a wrap, I think, for this video. Next time, I don't know, we might do the gauge cluster. The 911, gonna do some changes with the way the radio is wired in that. It's all aftermarket. So we might do that, and we might just do some garage cleanup. We'll kind of see. But stay tuned. If there's something you're interested in, leave a comment below. If you like what I'm doing, please subscribe. I hope to keep doing this weekly. Just kind of following along, me working on stuff. There's always some projects, so hope to see you again. Thanks for watching.